Hello everyone, how's it going? And welcome to my tier list for patch 2.6 in the Dragon Lane and in the support role. We've had a few changes with AD carries and a few changes with supports as well. So I'm going to go over kind of my thoughts about the meta and how everything is going to change, even though I don't really think it is going to change too much really. First up, we have Varus. Now Varus hasn't been changed at all. This is probably the biggest surprise of the whole patch. He got a new item as well, Edge of Night, which will be really, really good on him. You'll probably build it maybe third item or something like that. You'll probably go, or maybe even fourth item. You maybe go Manamune, Ghostblade, Grudge, and then Edge of Night after that. So you might not get until the later stages of the game, but it's a good defensive item. Gives you a lot of stats, a lot of health as well, a lot of attack damage, even more armor pen, which is all really, really well and good for Varus. So Varus doesn't move at all. He stays in his place. And with him in the S+ tier is Lucian. Now, I've uploaded a lot of Lucian content over the last few days, and I've been playing more and more Lucian, and this champion is just absolutely disgusting. Like, the amount of damage output you can do at Lucian doesn't matter, you know, at what point of the game really. It's just a combination that he can do with the Infinity Edge, the Solari Charge Blade, and the Bloodthirster. The damage output is just out of this world. It's just far and above beyond any other champion in the game right now, in my opinion. In terms of like burst damage, in terms of consistent damage, you got other champions as well. But in terms of heavy burst damage, Lucian is up there as one of the best for sure. And he's probably the best solo queue carry champion in my opinion as well. You got dashes. He works so well with Solari Charge Blade. You know, you can get your cooldown on your dash as well with your passive. You can just keep proccing the Solari, keep getting 100% crit, and keep on getting the extra damage as well, which is all really, really nice for Lucian. So they're my two S+ tiers. I don't think there's anyone above these two right now that are probably, you know, above and beyond these two. I think these two are just above and beyond the rest, really, to be honest. Behind Ezreal, Ezreal's still quite good. Obviously, he's not as easy to play as the other AD carries. You got to land your skill shots. You know, you got to know when to go in. You got to keep your dash available when you can, because obviously the dash does have a long cooldown. Sorry. It is a very safe champion to play, don't get me wrong, but I feel like you have to wait for a bit for Ezreal to come online. You have to wait until 2 or 3 items, then Ezreal will come online. He'll be completely unstoppable, which will be kind of crazy when it gets obviously to the late game. But in the early game, he is a bit weak. He doesn't really offer too much, to be fair, especially the first dragon fight. If you do have a team comp that wants to contest around first dragon fight, you know, you got champions like Varus and Lucian, and probably even like Corki as well with the package, and other champions that will probably offer more than Ezreal. But he's still a really strong champion, still really safe to play. And speaking of safe champions, you got Corki right next to him as well. Again, a very safe champion with the Valkyrie as well. You still go for that crit build with the Essence Reaver, Solari Charge Blade, Infinity Edge. You're just getting full-blown crit again, doing a lot of damage. But again, Corki is not as strong in the early game. He's still kind of, I would say, not weak in the early game, but he's not as strong in the early game as he is in the late game. And that's kind of where I feel like the champions like Varus and Lucian are kind of above the rest, is that Varus and Lucian are pretty much good at all stages of the game, but Ezreal and Corki do struggle a little bit in the early game, but they can scale up into the late game really, really well. Obviously, Corki, you have his passive as well with his package and everything, which is really, really strong, which is very nice. Kai'Sa, we haven't seen too much, to be fair, but she is still a strong champion. You do see her played a little bit the here and there, but I haven't really picked up on her since the nerfs, to be honest. I played a few games here and there. I did feel like the punch a little bit with her Q nerf, but I don't really play her as much just because there's other champions that I feel like are just more fun, to be fair. You know, with Kai'Sa, you do have a lot of scaling. You do have that power spike early on with the BF Sword, with the Executioner's Calling and the Launch Sword to get your evolves as soon as possible. So it's quite nice to play Kai'Sa, but I don't know. I don't really like playing Kai'Sa at the moment. I like Varus. I like Lucian. I like Corki, Xayah, all these champions as well. Even Caitlyn as well, I've been picking up as well since she's been released. And speaking of Caitlyn, we're going to move on to Caitlyn now. Now, obviously, Caitlyn got her nerf in this patch. Unfortunately, I don't think it's enough of a nerf. I mean, that's a lot of damage to be taken off the ultimate, but I don't think it's enough to warrant her being, you know, an average sort of champion. I still think she's going to be really, really strong. You know, her pass is still really, really strong. Her poke is still really, really strong. You know, you can set up traps so well around objectives. You got an escape mechanic as well with the net in. You got combos as well. This champion's still going to be, you know, really, really strong in my opinion, and I still think she'll definitely be up there as one of the best for sure, because she's just so hard to deal with in solo queue because of her range, and because now Morgana is in the game now as well. You can pair Caitlyn with Morgana, which is going to be a complete deadly duo down in the bot lane, because you feel like you're diving onto Caitlyn, you feel like you're, you know, doing some damage, but then the black shield comes out and you can't actually CC her at all, and she can easily, you know, net away, auto attack, and just do a lot of damage. Xayah. Now, Xayah received quite a big nerf, in my opinion. I believe it's probably one of the, maybe one of the biggest nerfs. I mean, it's definitely the biggest nerf out of all of the AD carries, because the other two champions I'm going to mention is buff. Probably the biggest nerfs, maybe in the whole tier list I'm thinking of. Probably is, to be fair. Yeah, it probably is the biggest nerf in the whole tier list, and maybe even the biggest nerf for the patch, to be fair. She obviously had her AD got nerfed, and also her W got nerfed, especially in the late game as well. Now, Xayah in the late game, I think it's kind of acceptable, I would say, in terms of nerf. I mean, her W was up a lot, to be fair, in the late game. I think it was crazy, like a 11-second cooldown. Now it's up to like 16 seconds. So it's a big difference, 5 seconds. You know, you can't just use it randomly. You have to actually time it when you want to use it now. So you can't just use it randomly, get like 1 or 2 auto attacks, and that's it. You need to make sure you time it to when you're about to auto attack or when you're about to get into a fight, because it's going to be a long time until you get it again. So you need to make sure you time it correctly. And obviously her base AD nerf in the early game, she's not going to have as much damage now. She now has the same base AD as Ashe, which we'll obviously get into in a bit. But I still think she's really, really strong. If you know how to play her, you'll still be able to carry with her for sure. She has her ultimate as well for safekeeping, you know, against anything like a Braum ultimate, a Camille ultimate, anything like that. She's still one of the safest champions to play, and still really, really strong. Draven hasn't changed too much, still A+ in my opinion. Again, I've moved Vayne into A+ tier as well, just because of how difficult she is to play. I feel like these two champions could definitely move up into S, both of them, but I put them down below in A+ just because of how difficult they are to play. They're not as easy as the champions above. I mean, maybe Xayah's a bit hard as well, but she still does, in my opinion, more damage than, you know, the likes of Vayne and Draven. Maybe not in a respective early game for Draven and late game for Vayne, but I think, like, overall, over the course of the game, Xayah can do more damage. But Draven, obviously really, really strong in the early game. If you do get put behind her in the early game, it is really hard. You do need to make sure you get a kill before you actually die. If you don't, then you lose a lot of your adoration stacks, and you just lose a lot of gold overall, so it's a bit hard. Vayne, again, in the early game, really, really weak. Really, really hard to kind of get into the late game with Vayne, unless you have someone next to you, like a Lulu, like a Janna, or someone that can defend you. Maybe even a Morgana now as well. Might even see Morgana Vayne in the bot lane, but we'll have to see how that one works. Tristana, again, nothing's really changed. She still stayed the same for me. Same with Jinx as well. These two champions have really, really high hyperscale late game potential, especially Jinx as well, with like Lulu and everything. You could just combo them two together and be really, really strong. I believe, I think the Vayne Lulu is probably better than Jinx Lulu, in my opinion, just because Vayne just has a lot more outplay potential, and Jinx just pretty much stands there and just auto attacks with her rocket form all the time, which is not always the best option, but sometimes it can work in team fights. Tristana is just really, really hard to play, unfortunately. She does do a lot of damage. She is getting buffed and buffed and buffed, and she actually wasn't buffed this patch. Probably the first time for maybe 3 or 4 patches. But maybe they feel like she's in a pretty stable spot, but I don't think she's still as good as the others. Now, Ashe. Ashe is an interesting one. Now, Ashe obviously saw a lot of play in NA regionals and everything, and, you know, they kind of got used to her a little bit, and, you know, she's making some decent plays, and the build is... I think the build's kind of all over the place. No one really knows what to build with her, but the buff that she got, the base AD buff, is now up to 58. I think it's 52 before. So now it's the same for, you know, the likes of Xayah. So in the early game, you might actually be able to do quite a lot of damage, to be fair. Obviously, it's not going to help her a lot in the late game, because the base attack damage mainly helps you in the laning phase, but that's kind of what she was struggling in the first place. She wasn't really doing a lot of damage. But now, you know, I might have to give her a try. I might have to give her a try and see how she feels after the recent buffs. And the same with Miss Fortune as well. Both Ashe and Miss Fortune for me has moved up. I think these two are a lot better now than Senna and Jhin. The movement speed buff for Miss Fortune is really, really good, because now she'll be able to kind of kite around a little bit more. Obviously, if she gets attacked, then she loses her movement speed. But you know, being able to get a little bit of extra movement speed for a champion that's very, very mobile is very nice. And obviously, she got a damage buffer on her ultimate as well, which is going to be really good in combination with a support champion that I've added, which I'll get into in a bit. Akshan hasn't really changed. Akshan is still staying the same. I still believe he's a better mid laner than ADC. I probably will never play him as an AD carry. But yeah, there's that, to be fair. It's not really anything to really say about Akshan. I just don't really feel like he can win in 2v2s. He's a lot better in 1v1 situations. Like I said, especially in the mid lane as well. So we'll see how that works. And then in the B tier, we have Senna and Jhin. So Senna got a little buff, but again, you don't want to play AD Senna. You don't want to play farming Senna. I'm going to keep saying this every single time I do a tier list until they buff AD Senna again. But the soul drop rate when you farm minions is really, really bad. If it's fasting Senna is probably like S or A+, but fasting Senna, you actually need to have a duo to be for it to be able to work, because some people won't understand what fasting Senna means fully. And then lastly, my beloved Jhin didn't receive a nerf, so he is still down in the B tier. No really new items for him, no new runes for him, nothing for him really, unfortunately, and no buff for him either. So he is still sitting down in the B tier. So that's what I think about AD carries. I think there's a lot of champions that can move about. I think like the likes of Misfortune and Ashe could move up as well if people understand how to play them maybe a bit more, and maybe find a new build for them. Maybe find them a lot stronger than what they were. Champions like Xayah might move down since obviously nerfs. We'll have to see how much it affects her in the late game. We'll have to see how that goes. And obviously champions like Varus and Lucian that have not been touched at all, they're still going to stay the strongest. But it's going to be interesting to see how this moves around, because it can move around quite a bit. But for this one, it's kind of like a prediction, I guess, of what the tier list is going to be. Now, support. Support is the interesting one. I'm going to get into one champion very, very specifically. Obviously, Morgana is here, but another champion more specifically in this. But before that, Nami, Lulu, nothing's really changed for them. Obviously, Font to Life got nerfed, but I feel like a lot of people went away from Font to Life from these enchanters anyway, because Summon Area is just so much better. Nami, Lulu didn't get changed at all. I believe so. Yeah, didn't get changed at all. So they're still, for me, the best. They're still going to be really, really good. And the good thing about Nami and Lulu as well is actually they're pretty good against Morgana as well, because they're able to stop the Black Shield. Obviously, they don't really have a lot of... Lulu doesn't really have a lot of crowd control, but if there's a Black Shield on a target, Lulu can just EQ most of the time. I mean, it depends on the numbers on Morgana, but most of the time, Lulu can just EQ, and then you'll just have to... and then the Black Shield is basically gone. That's how the Black Shield of Morgana works, is that if there's enough magic damage dealt, that the magic damage shield is gone, then the Black Shield will be gone. That means you can still use the next crowd control ability to crowd control the target, that Morgana Black Shield. So it's really, really good. And obviously Nami as well is really, really good. Obviously both of them have shields as well and healing, which is still really, really strong in the game as well with the items. But yeah, these two champions are really, really good against Morgana. You just have to make sure you don't get caught out by Morgana's Dark Binding. Again, Janna just behind them as well. Janna is still okay, still pretty good. Again, it's just all about peeling with Janna. If there's a heavy engage comp, then Janna is the perfect pick for you. Obviously, she's not going to be as strong as the likes of Nami, Lulu. Probably not even as strong as Braum, Thresh, Rakan, and even Morgana, to be fair. I don't think she's as strong as the others. Remember that these are not in any order as well. If I was to put them in any order, it'll probably be this, maybe, I would say, if it was in any order. But yeah, Janna is not as strong as the rest, but yeah, it's still fairly strong overall. And just being able to peel for your AD carry and peel for your team and get a lot of healing and shielding is really, really nice. Braum obviously got a Font to Life nerf. Now the Font to Life nerf is actually pretty big. Was it -1 second, and also the cooldown has been nerfed as well, so now the cooldown's longer, so we'll have to see how that affects Braum overall. But Braum as a champion is still really, really strong. You still have your concussive blows passive, which is still really, really strong, especially in combination with the likes of Lucian, Kai'Sa, Vayne, anyone that can really auto-attack a lot and auto-attack really, really quickly. He still does a lot of damage as well. He still has a lot of good peeling with the shield, with the ultimate as well. So I think the champion will still be okay, but I think Font to Life might affect him a little bit in the early laning phase, because he won't be able to heal as much as he did before. Rakan still going to be really, really good. Rakan still really, really strong. One of the best team fight supports in the current meta. Being able to use the proto belt, use the dash to knock up people, use your ultimate to charm everyone as well. You know, there's multiple builds you can go with Rakan as well, and he's still one of the best out of all the supports, really, to be fair. Thresh, again, still really, really strong. One of the best solo queue supports, in my opinion. The only thing about Thresh now is that Thresh is going to be really hard countered by Morgana. Because the death sentence of Thresh takes a long time to charge up. If Morgana is clever, then Morgana will keep her black shield every time and make sure that her ADC or herself doesn't get hooked. So you can kind of react to it and make sure that you don't get hooked at all. But Morgana is gonna maybe counter most of the engaged champions, if not all of the engaged champions. But we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, as I said, Thresh, you know, with all your hooks, with your lantern as well to help your team. You got your box as well to keep the team safe. You can build tanky. Yeah, just overall a great solo queue pick to pick up, definitely. Now Morgana. Now this is going to be a bit hard because obviously Morgana is. I'm not actually playing Morgana. I'm recording this the night before of the patch, so I haven't actually tried Morgana yet. But I do feel like she is going to be a really, really strong support because there's so much crowd control in the bot lane that she can stop. As I mentioned, Thresh, Morgana's really, really good at. Leona as well, Galio, Amumu, which we'll get into later, Alistar, Sona, Seraphine. There's a lot of crowd control in the support area at the moment. Even Brand as well can be really good at and can be really good with these magic supports as well. But you have to be careful when to use the Black Shield to make sure that you're not going to... you don't need to stop any crowd control after the poke. But yeah, Morgana, very good offensively and very good defensively as well. Has a really good ultimate. Is able to buy Zhonya's really, really cheap as well, which I'll probably mention in another video. But yeah, you can buy Zhonya's really, really cheap because it's a really, really good item for Morgana to get straight away, because you can use your ultimate and you can channel your ultimate and you can just stasis in the middle of the team fight, and the ultimate will still keep going and it will still keep rooting as well at the same time. So really, really strong champion. It's going to be interesting to see what people build on her. I believe it's going to be like a full AP build, but we'll have to wait and see about that. Brand is still, you know, pretty decent down the bot lane. Mainly kind of see him a bit more in the Dragon Lane. We saw him a bit more in the Dragon Lane in the Horizon Cup. I still feel like he's going to be pretty good in the support role. He still does a lot of damage. He still has a lot of crowd control at the same time. In team fights, he's really, really strong as well. So we'll have to see how that comes up. Leona as well. Great lockdown potential. Really, really tanky champion as well. To be fair, even Leona can move up to yes tier. I've seen a lot of good Leonas like Excalibur and Keys doing really, really well with Leona. She's just super, super tanky. Does a lot for the team. Has great lockdown potential as well. But again, with champions like Morgana now in the game, if you're against a good Morgana, you have to make sure you time your engage now. It's super, super important now for most of these champions. When you're against Morgana now as a support, you need to make sure you time the engage. You need to make sure you memorize the cooldown of the Black Shield, the third ability of Morgana, and then engage when she doesn't have Black Shield available. And then it should be free. Most of the time, it will be free. If she does have Black Shield up, it will be a bit hard. Senna obviously got a slight buff to her ultimate. The missile speed went up by a little bit, but it doesn't actually mean too much, to be fair. I mean, missile speed's nice. You get the shield earlier. You can do damage earlier, etc., etc., things like that. But it doesn't actually make a lot of difference, to be fair. She's still pretty good in the support role, to be fair. And still pretty good, as I said before, as a fasting Senna. Still does a lot of damage. Still scales very well and everything like that as well. So Senna is still staying the same. Nothing really changed with her. She's still in the A+ tier. Galio as well, again, staying in the A+ tier as well. A lot of lockdown potential. Very, very tanky as well at the same time with the support Galio build. You can even go AP Galio if you want to as well. Can still work really, really well with all of his poke damage. Obviously, you have his ultimate as well, which can zone a lot of enemy champions away from your AD carry. Just a lot of good tools that Galio has that, you know, that could be that could be really good in the lane phase and even late game. Now, this is probably the biggest what the hell moment of this whole tier list. So you're probably looking at me right now thinking, Stuart, why have you put Amumu in the A+ tier? Right, let me quickly explain because I don't want to go into too depth. His first ability, his Q, now has double charges. This is what made Amumu's support in PC Legends really, really strong. Reason being is that you can lock down enemies really, really easily, like super, super easily. You can even get things like you can stun with your first ability. Then if you time it right, you can use your ultimate after that as well. And then if you're really lucky, you can even Q afterwards as well, just depending if the enemy team has enough tenacity or not. The really important thing is the Q, the double charge now on the Q. Now the only downside is that pretty much all the rest of Amumu got nerfed. His ultimate duration got nerfed. His E slow, I believe, got nerfed. His W damage got nerfed. His base stats got nerfed. So there's a lot of things that got nerfed. And I think Riot are probably thinking the same thing. Kind of what PC League of Legends obviously didn't have the advantage of is that Wild Rift and the developers are probably thinking, okay, we're going to make this change into League of Legends. We're going to make the change the same as League of Legends, but we're going to nerf the rest of his kit because of how powerful he was in the support role in PC League of Legends. So that's kind of the good thing about Wild Rift is that when PC League of Legends changes happen before that, the Wild Rift devs can take them changes and be like, okay, we're going to make these changes, but we're going to make it that little bit different to make sure that he doesn't break the meta. But I still think he might be pretty strong in the bot lane. I might give him a try myself as well. He actually got paired with Misfortune before as well, which is what I mentioned before. Misfortune, Amumu was a really, really strong bot lane because of all the crowd control with Amumu and because of the bullet time of Misfortune. You could just lock down targets and do a lot of damage. So we'll have to see. How that works out. Alistar, still down the A tier, still is going to struggle. Going to struggle even more now with the likes of Morgana in. You just can't engage at all at the moment with Alistar. At times you can engage. You can find the right fights. It was played quite a bit in the Horizon Cup as well last month, but there's not really a lot to really, say about Alistar, to be fair. It's just really, really tough for you to engage. There's a lot of champions that can counter Alistar as well. You just need to make sure you find the right team fight if you do play Alistar. He still can work. He's still super, super tanky. He's probably better to play as a 5-man or as a duo or even trio, because then you'll be able to actually communicate when you're going to engage with Alistar, which is kind of the pinnacle point. Again, all of these supports are not really changed, to be fair. Sona, Seraphine, Lux, they're all going to be pretty much the same. They're actually kind of probably all worse now because of Morgana. Again, the Black Shield stops the Seraphine ultimate, the Lux binding, the Sona ultimate as well. There's a lot of ways that Morgana can counter these sort of the support champions that have a lot of crowd control. But Sona's still really, really good in terms of scaling in the late game. You just really, really struggle in the early game. You just need to play as passive as possible. But if you get into the late game, you have low cooldowns. You have pretty much unlimited mana with the build as well, with the Seraph's Embrace mana build. And yeah, you can still carry fights with Sona. Probably with Sona more than the other two. Seraphine still has a lot of good lockdown potential. She still does a lot of damage. She still does a lot of healing and shielding as well. And she still could be really, really impactful if you can hit like a 5-man ultimate as well. And the same with Lux as well. If you can hit a 5-man ultimate, depending if you build obviously damage or support Lux, you can go either way, but it kind of depends on your team. Again, if you got like full damage Lux, you hit one binding, and then you can one-shot pretty much the AD carry, which can help you in team fights. But in terms of helping the team, Lux doesn't do too much. But we'll have to see how it goes. Again, if you're against the likes of Morgana, it's going to be really, really hard to try and catch someone out with a binding because of the Black Shield. Soraka got a slight buff to her heal on her second ability. I don't think it's going to do too much, to be honest. The champion can be kind of annoying at times, but I don't think like a 10 heal buff or something like that to Soraka is going to make a lot of difference. But we'll see. And then Blitzcrank, I moved Blitzcrank onto B tier. Okay, Excoundrel has changed my mind. The legend himself, Excoundrel, changed my mind. Blitzcrank is going to be the best support. I'm kidding. He's not going to be the best support. But if you know how to play Blitzcrank, and if you play Blitzcrank like a Scoundrel, and if you're against an Enchanter support, not Morgana, because Morgana can just Black Shield your hook, and then you'll just become useless. But if you're against Enchanter supports, you can hook them, you can take advantage of it, but you have to have an aggressive support with you. I mean, aggressive AD carry with you as well, for that to be useful. And yeah, that's pretty much it, to be fair. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. I might do a tier list maybe after a second, in patch 2.6a or patch 2.6b, whenever they come out. I don't know if we're going to be taking a break now because of Christmas. I have to wait and see. But yeah, I thought I'd give you a preemptive 2.6 tier list to get you guys ahead on the game and get you guys thinking about, all these sort of champions, especially AD carries as well. It's going to be really interesting to see, to try out the likes of Ashe, Misfortune, even like Zyra as well because of her nerfs, and even Caitlyn as well. It's gonna be really, really interesting. And obviously Amumu Misfortune in a bot lane might be the strongest bot lane, but we'll have to see. And obviously, with new items as well, new buffs and new nerfs, we'll I'll see how 2.6 fits. But yeah, thank you all for tuning into the video. I do appreciate it as always. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.